Number one Ibble Dibble here. Hello, friends, and welcome back for more from Harry's ITV interview with Tom Bradby. I don't even know how many of these videos I'm going to make. Number 11. Harry knows he's losing credibility and ridicules the world for questioning his authority.
The truth is something that I need to rely on. You can't just continue to say to me that I'm delusional and paranoid when all the evidence is stacked up.
But as you might guess, he gives us zero evidence. He never tells us what happened, which family member, when. Number 12, he initially refuses to mention Oprah by name, although he is sort of forced into it once much later in the interview. I wonder if there's bad blood there, or if both parties just agreed that their prior interview was so damaging to their reputations, it wasn't worth the hype.
And then we have a 12-month transition period, and everyone doubles down. My wife shares her experience. And instead of backing off, both the institution and the tabloid media in the UK both double down.
Harry, you can't pose as a media expert and then pretend you had no idea that interview would draw skepticism and criticism. I really wonder if Oprah asked to be one of his promo interviews and he declined, or vice versa. Number 13, Harry denies villainizing Camilla.
You are pretty consistently scathing and suggest that you are...
Scathing?
Well...
What's scathing towards...
Well, as in you say that your interests were sacrificed on her PR altar, to quote. And you seem to be specifically referencing that. Now, her people might say, well, it's not a crime to go to lunch with journalists.
There's no part of any of the things that I've said are scathing towards any member of my family, especially not my stepmother. There are things that have happened that have been incredibly hurtful. Some in the past, some current.
Does that mean Cammy told him he better apologize to his dad if he wants an invite to the coronation? Because he's not talking to his dad and she was trying to help the both of them in her motherly, grandmotherly, queenly role, and that's just common sense? I did notice that the coronation of King Charles III is no longer on Meghan's IMDb page, which it was last time I checked a couple months ago. So that's my theory. Meghan's IMDb page, by the way, is such a trashy trip to keep track of. She gets hired on and dropped from royal commentary projects constantly. Also, she gives herself a credit every time footage of her, just stock footage, is used for anything, like a morning show. Real stars don't do this. You can see this easily if you compare Meghan's page on the left to Nicole Kidman's page on the right from the same time period. Real stars only give themselves a credit when they appear as a guest on that show. But not Meghan. She plumps up her IMDb page so much you'd think she was hosting ITV News at 10 and Sky News Sunrise. As if anyone cares. Number 14, Harry says the royal family has been insufficiently scrutinized over the events of the past year.
No institution is immune to accountability or taking responsibility. So you can't be immune to criticisms either. And you talk about, scrutiny. And, my wife and I were scrutinized more than probably anybody else. I see a lack of scrutiny to my family towards a lot of the things that have happened in the last year.
What events, Harry? Prince Philip's funeral? Queen Elizabeth's funeral? Read the room. Number 15, Harry keeps trying to peer pressure us into believing him. This is the 6th time he does this in this interview, and the first time I thought, stop that.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of people who, after watching the documentary and reading the book, will go, how could you ever forgive your family for what they've done? People have already said that to me.
In this 72-minute interview, there are 19 instances of Harry supposing what we, the public, think. That is guessing how we feel every 3.8 minutes. If you're not really listening and don't realize how frequently he does this, it can seem innocuous enough. Like perhaps he's just hyper aware or overly concerned of how he and his wife are perceived. But at this frequency, it's more about him convincing us of his narrative. Number 16, Harry's stated desire for reconciliation sounds like narcissistic future faking to me.
Forgiveness is 100% a possibility because I would like to get my father back. I would like to have my brother back. At the moment, I don't recognize them as much as they probably don't recognize me. But that is a symptom of one of the problems where we're not just talking about family relationships. We're talking about an antagonist, which is the British press, specifically the tabloids, who want to create as much conflict as possible. The saddest part of that is certain members of my family and the people that work for them are complicit in that conflict. So though I would like to have reconciliation, I would like accountability, I've managed to make peace over this time with a lot of things that have happened. But that doesn't mean that I'm just going to let it go. You know, I've made peace with it, but I still would like reconciliation. And not only would that be wonderful for us, but it would be fantastic for them as well.
In other words, I'll come back and I'll be a good boy if you fire everyone we don't like, particularly the communications teams, discontinue the Royal Rota, and allow my wife to control all media strategy and personnel moving forward. By the way, we'd like our old financial arrangement, those titles for our children, and if possible, a televised apology. Oh, and I almost forgot, we're only going to the most glamorous events and locations. But if you give this to us, the torture will stop. Everyone will be so safe and happy, and we'll be a family again. Promise. Number 17, he's told us again and again how competitive William is with him, implying William is far less mature than we had thought, but he doesn't give us any examples. Not number of royal engagements worked, not number of polo matches won, not number of headline articles received, nothing. He doesn't give us any examples of William being unreasonably competitive or even competitive at all.
My God, sibling rivalry. I put a hand over my eyes. Have we not got past this yet? The whole heir versus spare thing? Wasn't it a bit late in the day for that tired childhood dynamic? But even if it wasn't, even if Willie insisted on being competitive, on turning our brotherhood into some kind of private Olympiad, hadn't he built up an insurmountable lead? He was married, with a baby on the way, while I was eating takeaway alone over the sink. Pa's sink. I still lived with Pa. Game over, man. You win.
He keeps using the words competition and sibling rivalry, but they're not the right words. He's jealous of his brother's love life and status. That's it. Number 18, Harry knows way too much about bridesmaids' dresses for a groom.
The Wretched bridesmaid story, story was your wife had made Kate cry.
There's been over 25 versions of that story now.
How would you know that, Harry? I thought you were on some sort of media diet where you weren't reading a lot about yourself for your mental health's sake. Sounds to me like you have a Google alert set up. And if that's not bad enough, why would you say it out loud in an interview that will be viewed by millions? Did you think throwing in some random number would make you seem smart? What is this? Number 19, another tell that Meghan was his ghostwriter.
At one stage, Harry recounts a clear-the-air meeting involving him, William, Kate and Meghan. It seems to have gone so badly wrong that he describes Kate as gripping the edges of the leather chairs so tightly that her fingers were white.
First, Doria's knuckles turned white when she was driving the car and someone called her the N-word in the Netflix special. Then Meghan's knuckles turned white as she clutched Harry's hand at the Royal Albert Hall appearance after telling him she was suicidal. Now Kate's knuckles are turning white as she clutches the edge of her leather chair. Why does she think this image is so powerful? Literary giants of the channel, is there a reference here I'm not aware of? Just kidding. Trashy 90s horror movie enthusiasts. Is there a reference here I'm not aware of? And finally, number 20, stop maligning Americans.
Kate says she's owed an apology from Meghan, who previously put a moment of Kate's forgetfulness down to so-called baby brain. According to Harry, Kate tells Meghan they're not close enough to talk that way, and William says that's not what's done here in Britain.
I know our common language divides us, but it's also completely unacceptable in America for one woman to accuse another of having baby brain, particularly when the accuser has never had a baby. Every time Meghan reveals her total lack of manners, it's put down to her being American. I know William was actually just trying to be polite by saying we don't do that in Britain, implying that she wasn't behaving in a totally ghastly manner. She was simply ignorant, which I'm sure he knew wasn't the case. He's too kind. I would have told her to get out and then told my brother his wife was a rude bitch who needs to learn her place. And she's not allowed to speak to me until she hears from me. And my brother's never accused me of being a competitive bully trapped in a rotting ancient family structure. Maybe he's too scared. All right. That's my rant of the day. See you tomorrow. Toodles. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.